Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh here for our weekly Chairman's Update. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good break for Christmas and New Year's and the holidays this year. It is indeed an interesting new year. 2025, as we're just a day or two into it, is going to be full of important changes, reforms, some problems and challenges in politics and public policy in our state, here in Washington State, and at the national level. The most important thing that we're going to see in the weeks ahead is a state issue. The Olympia legislative session starts in about 10 days. And as we've seen already during the holiday break, the political left, the Democrats in Olympia, are planning a number of tax increases, new taxes and tax hikes here in Washington State. They want to raise the business and occupation tax, the B&O tax on businesses. They want to raise property taxes. But the item that has caught most attention is the creation of a new tax that the political left and the Democrats call a wealth tax. This new tax proposal, state tax proposal, was outlined in a series of PowerPoint screenshots. So kind of PowerPoint slide talking points that were accidentally, at least they said it was an accident, were accidentally made public during the Christmas and New Year's holiday break by some left-wing legislators in Olympia. It really was an interesting thing. The screenshot PowerPoint talking points basically were lessons on how to lie about tax policy. So it was a bit of the mask slipping, in that the left has always tried to lie about how they're not for tax increases. Well, these talking points, and we could include some examples of them in the comments below here, really give lie to that they know they're lying when they want to raise taxes. So this wealth tax, what is this? It's really an expansion of the state's newly passed, so it's just the ink is barely dry on the state's capital gains excise tax. It expands that and really expands it and kind of changes it to the degree that this new proposal isn't just an extension of the existing tax. It really is, for all intents and purposes, a new state tax. What they want to do, the left, the tax and spend left in Olympia, they want to take this capital gains excise tax and lower the threshold for the kinds of things that are taxed by it. It had a high threshold. Only transactions over $250,000 in a single year would be taxed. Well, they're going to lower that threshold. One proposal is to $50,000, another is to $15,000, so that a lot more kind of middle class people will be taxed by this new wealth tax. And then they're going to also expand it conceptually to a thing that they call unrealized capital gains. That means you don't have to actually sell an investment or a rental house you own or any kind of capital asset that you have. You don't actually have to sell it and realize the profit on it, which is the original concept of a capital gains tax. You don't have to do that. Just owning the investment, just owning the capital asset will generate a new state tax. And that'll be charged every year on a capital asset that you own, even if you don't sell the capital asset for a profit. So it is it's an issue that the left, the political left, has been considering for a long time, but it's one now they have a real proposal for how they want to make this a new state tax. The wealth tax, like so many talking points of the tax and spend left, claims to be aimed at just the rich guys, But in fact, it hits the middle class. It hits all of us. I mean, basically anybody who's got a job, anybody who's got, some retirement money put away, anybody who's got a rental house they might be own and use for income is going to get hit by this new tax. It's a terrible idea. Even the outgoing governor's own bureaucrats at the State Department of Revenue have said it has a, quote, litigation risk, unquote. That stands straight. It sure does. There are likely to be a number of lawsuits filed about this unrealized capital gains, this wealth tax. It is constitutionally dubious. Remember, Article 7 of our state constitution here in Washington talks about tax policy, lays out the constitutional rules for state taxes, and this violates a number of those. I'll include a link to Article 7 of the state constitution below, too. You can read it. It's really well written and pretty clear on what can be taxed and how in the state of Washington. This proposal, this wealth tax, ignores Article 7 of the state constitution. So it's going to be a lot of taxes in 2025. I do want to pivot for a second from the state level to the federal level, to D.C. A lot going on in D.C. Of course, the new president will be inaugurated in a few weeks, and there's change afoot in D.C. as the Republicans do have control of the U.S. Senate now. So at least for a period of time, the Republicans have the trifecta in D.C. They control the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, and, as of January 20th, the White House. What we here in Washington State are looking for out of D.C. quickly is election reform. Now, the federal government can't tell every state how to run its elections, but the federal government can set national guidelines that apply to all states for things like having to provide some form of ID when either you register to vote or you vote to show you're a citizen and therefore a legal voter. The federal government can set national standards for allowing people to vote in person if they choose to. The national government, the federal government, can set national standards for things like when we vote, that it is same-day voting. But the main one we're looking for is that first one. We would like to see new law, election reform law out of D.C. that requires proof of identity, proof of identification, that a person is a legal citizen before they register to vote or vote. And I think it is realistic that we'll see this. We may see some other good reforms out of D.C. too. And while, again, the federal government can't tell individual states how to run their elections, the federal government can set national standards for elections, and I believe will set those standards. That will help us with election integrity issues here in Washington State, where our state laws have been very lax and weak on enforcing election integrity. And I guess the last thing I'll do is pivot back again to the state level in politics and policy. I've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails and concern about these so-called hate speech snitch lines, the couple of hate speech bills that the new governor, the incoming governor here in Washington, in Olympia, has been championing. These hate speech snitch lines, this anti-hate speech sort of basket of bills and small policy points that the incoming governors supported are problematic. Like the tax issues, they are unconstitutional in my opinion, and certainly constitutionally questionable by any standard. What they'll tell you is these the hate speech snitch lines are only starting in a few counties in a sort of pilot program. That doesn't matter. They're still constitutionally dubious. We are going to push back hard on these constitutionally dubious policies, these hate speech hotlines, these anti-free speech policies, which are designed to chill and discourage free speech. This is a right that you have that is protected not only by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, but by several sections, including Article 1, Section 10, Article 1, Section 7, even Article 1, Section 4, a number of sections of Article 1 of the state constitution. Free speech is an essential foundational right. And the incoming Governor Bob Ferguson's efforts to undermine free speech, to chill and discourage and scare people into not speaking freely what they believe, are unconstitutional, they are un-American, and they run against the principles that founded Washington State. We are going to push back against these pilot programs and these proposals at every turn, and that is part of the WAGOP's project to resist tyranny. This story is only beginning, and our new year is the first page of a new approach to defending rational tax policy, to reforming our elections, and to defending your constitutional rights. That's what the Washington State Republican Party stands for, and that's what we're going to do in 2025 and beyond. That's it for this week. I'll talk to you again next week. We are in the new year. The legislative action, both in Olympia and DC, is coming up. Until then, be well and stay strong. How far